Hi, I'm Cathe Holden. I'm here at Scrapbook.com to share another project using my flea market finds products with spellbinders. Today, we're going to make this really fun snippet roll. So snippet rolls can be made with fabric, but I like making them with paper. And the purpose of a snippet roll is just to have fun collaging, or you can use them in home decor. You can save your roll and just cut from it for card making. There's just so many fun things you can do. In my studio, I hang them vertically like art in strips. So let's get started and I'll show you how I make them using my papers and clear stamps. For my snippet roll, I'm just going to be using some basic cotton that I'm going to be tearing into a strip. I'll be using this blue-green palette sampler with fun papers, a glue stick, a shape punch or two. I'm going to be using my clear stamps. There's so many things to choose from. I can use them for stamping. I can use them to stamp to paper to cut out to make little bits of ephemera. Lots of options. All right, let's get started. When I make my snippet rolls, I kind of like to go with a theme, and typically I go with a color theme, so I'm going to go with the blues and greens with the inks and the papers. For my snippet roll, I'm going to just take a strip of cotton. I'll give it a little cut there and tear myself a strip. If I plan to use a spool, I would tear it the same width as the spool. You don't have to use a spool. I like to use a spool. I like to pick up these vintage spools when I can find them. You can make yours. You can just use a die punch to get your discs, glue them to a, something maybe from the saran wrap where you were tossing out when you were done with it. You can make your own, or you can just roll these up and tuck them away on a shelf in a cluster. They're just fun to have. So here's my strip. I don't know how wide that is, but I'm going to guess about 3.5 inches. It doesn't really matter. The way I'm going to start decorating this, though, is I'm going to assembly line it. So every item I use, I'm going to go down the line and use it multiple times. I always like to get started with paper. Here, for an example, I'll take a piece of paper. There's going to be a lot of tearing, and I love to just tear. So I'm going to tear similar shapes like this, and then I'll just start going down and decorating like that, all the way down. I'll pick another paper, maybe cut a different shape. Like this one. Maybe these will be squares. I always like to kind of run some papers right to the edge versus floating everything. I like to have things along the edge nice. What I also like to do is add ephemera. So I'm going to make my own. I'm just going to grab some white paper and some of my favorite stamps and start stamping. I'll take some of these and just cut them out as separate little paper pieces. I love to fussy cut. It's always fun to pre-plan and do a lot of stampings, and then when you're watching reruns or you're on a road trip or something, it's always very sort of mindful work to sit and just trim little things out. I can also use a punch to punch some of the rounds. Make seals. I can cut out all of these shapes to make little bits of ephemera. And then I'll place them about as well. And I just keep building and building and building until I get what I like with all the different papers. There's also papers that are fun to fussy cut themselves. If I can find one. I have an interesting story about this particular paper. My late father-in-law was in the Marines, and when he passed and we were going through some of his things, his footlocker actually had a tray in it, and this was the paper that covered the tray of his footlocker. Isn't that beautiful? So I would like to cut maybe some of these flowers out. I'll cut some more of the leaves and I'll put those around. I think I'm just going to keep going. Once I like the layout of what I have, I'm going to start at one end and go to the other and start gluing. I can do this as I go, or I can wait and do it all at once, but it doesn't take much glue. Just use a glue stick. We're just going to keep things in place. It's nothing permanent. So I'll do that, and I'll just keep adding and adding and adding until I've almost covered up all of the fabric. So this I've got covered pretty well. I've got about 4 feet of different little bits and pieces. You'll see here is the ephemera that I made by stamping to paper. I've done some fussy cutting with the paper. I've punched out just some basic shapes with some of my punches. And so to this, I'm going to just start doing some rubber stamping on top with some of my favorite stamps. All right, let's get stamping. By the end, I like to have just almost every little piece of fabric covered with something in my blue-green strip. All right, so I've got lots of stamps and little ephemera bits. I feel pretty good about this. Now what I'm going to do is take this to my sewing machine, and I'm just going to sew a running stitch, multiple stitches throughout the entire length of this. I like to start in the very middle, and then I go to the ends. So I'll stitch down the middle, I'll go off to the side, I'll stitch down one end, I'll stitch down the other, then I'll do a stitch in between those stitches, and then I'll continue going and doing in between stitches. The more stitching I do, the length of this, so there'll be lots and lots of rows of stitches, the more flexible and more you sort of meld the paper with the fabric, and it becomes very bendable. Okay, we've done our stitching. Nothing perfect about my rows. That's okay. This is supposed to be very scrappy looking. Sometimes I even come back and I give a little crunch, and it kind of makes the edges pop up a little bit, makes it a little scrappy. Before you stitch, you can also add little bits of lace and ribbon, little tucks of velvet. You know, just kind of go through anything that you have that has a textile to it. You can add. You can even come back later and stitch some buttons on there. That would be really fun. So this is all stitched up, and I'm going to roll it around a spool. So I'm going to wrap this around my spool, and then next time I need to decorate a little gift box, or I'm, say, I don't know, making a nice gift tag and I just want to do something quick, I can just go cut a little section off of this and glue it to the tag. Again, I can use it as home decor, or I like it in my studio as decor. I'm going to wrap that around, finish it with a little string. And there's my snippet roll. So whether you're creating a snippet roll to use for scrapbooking, collage, and other projects in your craft room, on the roll looks great. You can also use them in your home decor. I like to wrap them around inexpensive, store-bought planters. So thanks for joining me today. I hope you enjoy making your snippet roll.